Warning, what you're about to hear is intended to make you laugh a lot, while also hearing some cool people talk about the cool shit they're doing. If you're easily offended or just can't take a joke, then you should turn this off right now. Otherwise, turn this shit up and hang on. Welcome to the Get Up. All right. Welcome to the Get Up. I just see laughing at that goofy, funky music. Welcome to the Get Up. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram, The Get Up Show. You can also check us out at Facebook at The Get Up Show Podcast. We're on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music, everywhere, The Get Up. And then you can also just visit the site, www.thegetupshow.com. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe, comment, do all that good stuff. Today, I am joined by a fellow that I actually went to high school with by the name of Ted Hauser. Ted Hauser, how you doing?
Good. How are you, man?
Doing good. Yeah. What's going on? So Ted is interested in something that I'm very passionate about. If you've listened to the show, you know we talk movies. Ted is also into film and he's got some really cool stuff going on. So that's why we have him on to see what's been going on with him and the things that he's been doing. So Ted, what do you got? What do you got going on?
Yeah. So good to see you again, man. It's
been
a while.
Right? It's been forever.
Yeah. So I'm a filmmaker and I'm also a film festival coordinator. And I've just recently I'm coming aboard the Cinetopia Film Festival, which is one of the larger film festivals in Michigan. We might be first or second largest film festival in Michigan. That's happening in May of this year. So I'm the Detroit Festival coordinator. It's been going on for 7 years.
Really?
We put on 62 films around Metro Detroit. So it's in Ann Arbor and in Detroit and Metro Detroit. This year we're going to be in Ann Arbor, Dearborn, Royal Oak, the city of Detroit, wherever the Maple Theater is. What is that? Bloomfield Hills?
Yeah, somewhere.
Right. So 62 films over 10 days. We're going to have filmmaker panels, special events, secret movies.
Secret
movies you
can't even announce. Okay.
No
spoilers. Okay.
Right. Maybe we can talk about it off mic.
Okay.
Yes. So, so what Cinetopia does is they program movies from a lot of world film festivals. So they don't take submissions like Sundance, but what they do is they syndicate films, which is what a lot of festivals do now, which means they go to Sundance. They pick them up there in Toronto. So it's going to be a lot of great movies from all around the world that may not get released in Michigan or may not get released for very long. Right. What I'm really excited about, though, is that Cinetopia has a short film competition that only comes from local films.
Really?
So that's one of my responsibilities. It's called Detroit Voices. It's a short film competition. It's like $5,000 in cash prizes.
Okay.
We show docs and narratives, and if you're a local filmmaker, actually,
is that submission based?
It is submission based, and so that's great because if you're a filmmaker in Michigan, you want to go to a film festival. The idea that this big film festival happens that has that's showing movies in all these great venues, that they should also probably show some local films. So the features are mostly sourced from these big name filmmakers that are coming from Sundance, but for local content, we definitely want to support local.
That's
filmmakers.
Awesome, yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So that's happening May 10th through 19th.
All right,
and you can just look that up, cinetopiafilmfest.org.
Sweet. Mm-hmm. All right, that's awesome, dude. Actually, I'd never even heard about that until I saw that you posted that, and I was like, that's cool too, right? Like, I reached out to you because I saw that you were interested in film and everything, and then all of a sudden you're like, bam, doing this too. So how did that come about? Like, how did you even get involved with that? How did that all happen?
Okay, so I studied film in school, and then I moved out to LA. Just a quick history about me. And then I did 7 years of doing various stuff in the entertainment industry that I actually didn't really like that much. And I've got some stories. Just quickly, my first job was working development. So I would be reading scripts and writing reports on scripts for a company that exclusively did business with the Hallmark and Lifetime channels.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. So you read all the
right.
the crazy Hallmark
So this was this was funny too, because this is first off is that like not everyone, but most people in the entertainment industry is crazy, and my boss was very crazy.
Sure.
I mean, if he's retired, maybe I'll give his name. Maybe I shouldn't give his name. But
yeah, we'll hold off.
Yeah, we'll hold off. Maybe he was crazy, and he was also not the type of person who would ever watch Hallmark or Lifetime.
Right.
But our company made TV movies, and we had this infrastructure to make TV movies, and in 1 year we made 6 Lifetime movies. So we could this is back when like a lot of production was in Toronto. I don't know if this is kind of before every state had a film incentive.
Right.
So anyway, I don't want to.
And Toronto's been pretty big. I know that they have a lot of incentives, and a lot of stuff gets shot in Toronto as like a backdrop for like New York, Chicago, Detroit.
Just everyone speaks with a Canadian accent.
Right.
Oh, hello.
Or they just don't talk, and it's just the actors.
But that was a lot of long hours. I mean, it's Hollywood, so it's kind of like startup hours. Like you're working in Silicon Valley. But an interesting experience, and I did 7 years of that in various different offices. And then
7 years of Hallmark movies? I don't know.
Well, not Hallmark movies. That was only about 2 years. That was only 2 years.
I was gonna say 7 years, man. That's you're calling the guy crazy. I don't know.
I'm going crazy.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah. So now I have some great Hallmark stories. But after that, I moved back here. I moved back to Michigan, and what I wanted to do is like focus on my own work, on my own films, and all of the interesting projects that I've always had in the back of my mind that I couldn't really do in LA. I wanted to do them here. So I started doing movie nights. I used a pop-up event space to do movie nights, and then moved on to program some film series at legit movie theaters. That's always been something that I wanted to do, something that I didn't really make a lot of money off of. But, yeah. So,
but I mean, that's just kind of cool, right? I mean, that's I got my movie in a theater, in a real theater. Like, screw it. Even if you didn't make any money, like, it's something you can check off. Like, you did. It's cool. It's the real theater experience. Someone gets to experience it like that. I mean, for some people, that's the part of it, right? Is like I could watch a movie in my TV in my room, but I want to go to the theater. So that's cool. I can respect that.
Yeah, and so that's what kind of directly led me to working with Cinetopia. They're mostly based out of Ann Arbor.
Okay.
And they've kind of expanded into Detroit because there's a lot of great theaters here, and there's a great audience. And just my experience of just putting on film series and just knowing people in Detroit and kind of working in that, it's kind of paid off. So yeah, this is great. I mean, it's rare in the creative space to get a 9-to-5 that is creative, at least in Michigan. So I kind of felt like this is a little bit of a payoff, not to brag or anything, but I've been working at this for a while, maybe 4 years or so, of just this side hustle of just putting on film series and showing it, like sharing cool films to people, or like begging them to be like, this is
worth your time.
Yeah,
come check it out. Right.
And
I think part of that too, though, that part's got to be kind of hard, right? And that's a conversation that I've had before is critics and like what's a good movie, what isn't, because each person can take different value out of it, right? So trying to get someone like, hey, you got to come check out this. Like, my girlfriend gets pissed off at me all the time because either it'll be one she didn't want to start watching, and then she ends up like, wow, that was really good, or she's like, what the fuck are you making me watch? So like, it can go both ways. So I can see how it's hard to get people to go out of their normal comfort zone of the movies that they kind of like or the entertainment they like and be like, look, this is worth your time. Come check it out.
That's exactly like what I'm just trying to do, especially because like coming from my experience in the industry, so much of the industry is like marketing, right? So it's like marketing, and it's like Rotten Tomatoes, and it's all that stuff. And to ask someone like, okay, you need to see this movie, it might not even be on Rotten Tomatoes. It's going to be something weird, like, it's called Mika Droid. It's about it's a 80s Japanese exploitation movie about a samurai super soldier from the 40s who was frozen after World War II and now comes alive and kills people in the parking garage of a disco.
Is this one that you made, or is
No, this is the real movie from the 80s that I showed. It's called Mika Droid.
Really?
And the undertitle is Robo Kill Under the Disco Layla. It's incredible, and because it doesn't have any, I don't know. There's essentially no release of the movie. I don't know even know how I got
how you even got a copy
DVD.
of it.
A friend of mine gave me the DVD, and he's like, "This is something that you would like," and I was like offended almost because it's like the DVD cover is like just the most ridiculous exploitation movie, and then you watch it and you're like, "This is genius."
Have you ever seen? So it's funny because you talk about that, right? Like the movie that kind of gets passed around and no one really even knows how it got released or how you even ended up with it. I saw one in Chicago. So when I went to Columbia College, I saw one called The Forbidden Zone. It's black and white.
Oh yeah.
It's got Hervey, the little
from
small
Treasure Island.
Yes.
I know this movie. Yes.
That was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen in my life. Like the fact that it looked like the backdrops for everything was just made out of construction paper, and I mean it was so crazy. It just looked like basically they just got really high on some acid or something and then just was like, let's make a movie this weekend. And it was so bizarre. I mean, like at one point they were like in a classroom and someone throws something out the window and it literally just goes through a paper window and rips the paper. And it was like, what? And then I just remember the funniest part when they go to the Forbidden Zone. It's like through this whole tube and then you realize it's like someone's intestines because then they got like shit out with like brown pillows. It was so, but I mean, black pillows because it was black and white. But it was just such a weird movie. And it was just like, how did this get made? How did this? And I've like looked it up. I can't really find anything on it. Like, it's just so bizarre. But, it was one of those things like film school students were passing around. Hey, check this out.
Yeah, and it's such an amazing experience just to experience a film that you just don't know what's happening.
It's like you're in that, and it's like you're in like the secret little club. Like, yeah, I've seen this movie. Where
it's like just the experience of watching the movie. You just don't know what
you're going to be in for.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, there's been some films like that I feel like might be a little more mainstream. Just you explaining Forbidden Zone to me reminded me of Mandy, which came out. It's a Nicolas Cage movie. It came out last year about the guy that directed Panos Cosmatos. He's like a Greek filmmaker who made Beyond the Black Rainbow.
Okay.
So this is his like second movie. It's got Nick Cage in it, and it's like
it sounds familiar.
It's essentially being like on an acid trip. It's the most bizarre, nightmarish kind of film that you could imagine. But yeah. Anyways,
So this is one that I watched recently, and we talked about it on one of my previous episodes, because it's one that had some decent buzz, and the trailer looked really weirdly intriguing, and it was just so I don't know what the point of this movie was. It's called The Greasy Strangler.
Right, I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
Holy crap. I mean, that was one my girlfriend got mad at me for. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? And I was like, baby, you have to watch the bad to appreciate the good. I was like, I couldn't call myself a film fan if I don't just watch all these movies, whether they're good or bad. And I have this horribly sick thing inside of me that I have to finish it once I start it. So it took me like 3 days. I kept trying to watch it like in bed and I'd fall asleep. So, but it's bizarre. It's real bizarre. Yeah. So how did you even get into being interested in doing film, thinking that's like, hey, this is what I want to try to do with my life? Or like, where did that come from?
Good question. I've always like watched movies. Well, obviously everyone is a film fan usually, but I don't know. I think I took a film class in college, and I mean, myself, I have weird taste in movies, just like you. So I think my taste kind of changed. I don't quite know how to answer your question, Jason, but I don't know. I think that I, from my memory, I had a really bad taste in movies. I think when I started college, I think I watched.
So define bad taste.
I don't want to offend. I'm going to offend some of your viewers. Okay, so maybe if I go back and I watch some of these movies, I'll actually say, okay, these are good. But,
so pre-college class, when you're saying this is the bad taste years, what would have been like top of Ted's list?
The Boondock Saints.
The Boondock Saints? I love that movie.
I know. But I think there's a certain type of, I don't know. It's like a very, I don't know. It's a I don't know.
Look, there was a period in my life
Yeah.
I watched the Boondock Saints almost every day.
Yeah, I mean that was a time in my life where I was like, oh, the Boondock Saints is the perfect movie.
I did a college paper when I was in film school on the editing and how if no one's ever seen the Boondock Saints, but how at the beginning the crimes or what the brothers were doing and what would happen, and then there would be the detective, and as it goes through the movie, they start to get closer and closer. Like, so it starts off where like that happens, then the detective goes, and then it turns into the detective's there, and it would cut from the detective investigating to what was going on, back to the detective, back to what was going on or what happened, and then it like towards the end, it turns into like he's investigating the scene while it's all going on, like they're in the same space, and that was kind of symbolic of him coming over to agreeing what they're doing and then helping them out at the end. So it was really neat how they did that with that. That was my whole paper. But Boondock Saints was an amazing movie, and it's funny because I see people with the tattoos on their hands and stuff.
Yeah, that's a thing now. But I mean, I think
Ted, you got one of those tattoos.
Hey, listen. I think that I started liking just different types of movies, and I think I was just exposed to something, and I think that I just watched lots and lots of just like foreign films or weird films. I think I had a lot of time on my hands, and so it changed the way how I saw film, and I think that I saw it more from like a creative expression point of view, that a person could like personally express themselves like an artist, I guess. And I started thinking about myself and the types of work that I wanted to make, I guess. And it was just a very, I guess, transformative experience.
Okay.
And then for some reason I thought that I had to move to LA to do that. So then I moved to LA, and then
but
I
that's
did.
not
Yeah.
that's not so out there. That is the common thought, right?
Right.
New York or LA, one of the two. No, and it's interesting you say that, because that was kind of like, that's one of the things that I love about film and even TV shows now, especially like the more polished and better written shows that you're seeing a lot now. It feels like that TV, or at least like with Netflix and even some of the cable stuff is up there with movies, and they're able to tell this really deep story because they have so much longer to do it. But that was one thing that I've always loved, is that it can elicit an emotion in you, right? Like that you can tell a story that can get an emotional response out of someone, and I can do that, like put myself in that place. Like there was one we talked about, was like, what's the last movie that made you cry, right? Like I can put myself in there and feel those emotions, I feel like, pretty well. And that's one of the things I love, like where it's like, man, that was really good, and I can understand how it was, like where that came from. And then you watch like The Greasy Strangler and you don't have any clue what the fuck's going on. But that's what I always loved about it.
Right, and I think that's it's good that you brought that up, because I think that maybe what I was trying to mean earlier was, the type of movie like The Greasy Strangler or is a film that's like so personal. It's just like, that's not
Right.
that's obviously an independent movie, even though that word gets thrown around a lot. That's an independent movie in the way that guy just had an idea,
Right, and it meant something to him. It's his story somehow,
and it may
not resonate with everyone.
And he found a way to make it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not to get into the business and talk about like the money,
but it's there. That's part of it.
And I brought up the industry in the way that it's just very corporate. If anyone listening has ever worked in a corporate job, it's like, to dispel any myths about the the industry. You're just I was reading, for example, I'll give you the example for Lifetime. We were a company that did business with a cable channel, so they're a buyer, and we just had to provide them with content that they were interested in buying,
Right,
based on what they've bought in the past. And it's just it's just widgets, it's moving paper.
Right.
It's a process. You'd read scripts, you would analyze them and compare them to the future market, the past market, and then like you just made movies. They said yes or no.
How many Lifetime movies that actually got made did Ted Hauser play a part in? Is there one that you can be like, I read that script, I approved that one, and it got made?
There's only one thing that I'm proud of, and that was a Hallmark movie called Every Second Counts, which is about it's about rodeo sports, and actually it's a really interesting story. And this thing got rewritten like 20 freaking times.
Is that frustrating too?
Yeah, yes, because it's
because it's not what you read it originally doesn't end up being what it.
Yeah, but also the fact that rewrites are following the most like impulsive notes. So like when you're making a movie and you're very close to getting the movie made, because it's so difficult to achieve success in the industry, people kind of get desperate. And I think this might explain how like total fiascos happen, like that John Carter movie from like 5 years ago. You're right. You're getting up to the finish line, right? And you need, if you're the writer or the director or whoever, you just want to get to the point where they say yes and they transfer the money, and then it actually happens. So
and I bet you John Carter was like more like 10 years ago, but
that's right. But anyway,
flies.
so just with it was originally called Fast Time. It was just about rodeo sports. So it's about a kind of like a 15-year-old girl whose dad was a big kind of rodeo sport. So this is like penning calves. Like so,
Okay.
it's rodeo sports. There's a bunch of different ones.
Yeah.
This is not riding a bucking bronco. This isn't like that thing. This is more like you're on a horse, and what you need to do is you need to like pen calves. So they let out these like wild like cows or something, and they're running around this big pen, and there's a way to like catch them and then put them in
steer them in.
Steer them in, and you have to do, there's like 5 of them, and you have to get the fastest time. And actually this movie explored that whole world, and it was really interesting because there's like cash prizes, you can be professional, like you can rise your way up. And so basically this is like the father was like injured, so he can't run, so he's like living vicariously through his teenage daughter. And his teenage daughter is so good, she competes at the adult level, even though she's she's won all the youth league, so now she's like at this elite level, and she has to choose, does she want to have like a life, go to prom,
or do this,
or do this. And she's like the best, and
she's got the pressure from her dad because he's living through her,
and like the family doesn't make a lot of money because the dad essentially like is a coach to his athlete daughter. And it just so it's basically like a youth sports movie with this like heart, and it was like really, really good. It's just like a really good story, and I just wanted them to like find a creative direction for it, because there was like one draft of the script where it's like, oh, she's aspiring to go to college and she wants to be a veterinarian and all this stuff, because they had to give her like a future, and I'm like, and then it's like, well, then that's not like a sports movie. And every time there's this, which direction are we going to take, and it kept on getting rewritten. Finally they ended up making it, which was good, because a lot of the stuff I worked on just never got made. You can see it, it's available, you can get a DVD. It was like pretty well done. Shot in Colorado. Thankfully they didn't shoot in Toronto, because I was like, guys, we can't shoot this is like the family has to live in the West, right? You can't shoot this in Toronto. And there's like, where are there mountains in Toronto? You can go to like Vancouver, but I don't know. So thankfully they didn't shoot it in Canada, it's a fun little movie.
Sounds like something that'd be right up my daughter's alley. She loves like Flicka and all these horse movies. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. So that was that had to be an interesting experience, because I know that's one thing. Like and recently we've seen it more in the news, right? Like where directors, like, that wasn't my vision. Like that was not the movie that I directed that ended up getting put out. Like there always does feel that. And as far as like the corporate part, I think that is more prevalent or known now than it used to be, because what we're seeing a lot now is just a regurgitation of different properties. Now, look, there's some movies I wouldn't mind if they like continued the story, right? But like Gremlins, I'm personally, I would love to see Gremlins continued, not rebooted. I'm not a fan of the reboots, but just continued on, right? There's some classic movies that don't need to be rebooted. We have better technology now, we can make it look prettier, but that was part of like the magic, right? Is like you're able to do a convincing story using the technology you had at the time. And some of it doesn't date very well, but oh well, that's just what it was. So I don't feel like there's a need to do that. Like, why reintroduce this story when you could just say like, hey, younger generation, go explore the older, you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. It'd be like someone remaking like Casablanca or something like that, like, or Gone with the Wind, like these classic movies. No one's going to remake those. They might use the same plot lines in a different format, but they're not going to remake it, rename it, put it out. That would be almost like sacrilegious, right? But I think there's too much of that now, where we're seeing these movies just constantly being churned out. Disney's live action and everything, like, that was cool. Like, I used to love the Disney animation movies, and now they're just like, oh, we're gonna live action them all.
That Aladdin thing was like, the Aladdin trailer came out a couple weeks ago, and I was just like, you literally just did a shot for shot remake of the animated film, like literally. And I'm like, wow. But Yeah, no, yeah, I'm totally on board with that. I mean, and despite the fact that like watch a lot of independent films for work now, and I watch like a lot of movies. I still like popular entertainment stuff. I can still get captured by a big dumb action movie if it's fun and exciting.
Right.
You know,
Are you able to do that, like with the experience that you've had in the industry and then doing the independents, and you're looking at those movies from the prospect more of like, what's the story being told here, right? Are you able to turn your mind off and just watch that mindless summer blockbuster and just enjoy like escaping your life for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, however long they are now? Like, so one that I always brought up was like the Transformer movies, like the original, with Shia LaBeouf, and like even the first like trilogy. I wasn't expecting Oscar caliber anything out of those movies, and to see how they got like torn apart, or even Baywatch, like the Baywatch movie with The Rock. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it. It's stupidly funny. And like the opening scene is the opening scene, The Rock carries a dude out of the water, and he's walking up out of the water, and then like Baywatch comes out of the water, and dolphins are like crisscross jumping and like totally tongue in cheek, knows it's not taking itself seriously. But that movie got destroyed critically, like, oh, this is just a bunch of dick jokes, which it was, but it was funny, and it was not like meant to be something serious. And that's one of the issues that I have lately, is it doesn't seem like people are able to like take it what it is. Like that was meant to just give you a chuckle. It wasn't a serious movie. Not everything's got to be looked from like such a critical point where it's like, is this going to make it? Is this going to win awards? Or because some of them aren't made for that. Some of them are made just to make some cash, be funny, while other ones have more telling stories.
Yeah, yeah, I can fall into a movie and it can trick me and kind of like bring me in, so to speak. That definitely can happen. I mean, I definitely also, on the other side of things, can be distracted by a movie. I think that I'm trying to think, if the movie is really pandering, like, you know what I mean, I think that will take me out. Like right as I was leaving the industry, YA was becoming like super popular. Mm-hmm. So like I remember I was watching once, like in a hotel room, I watched the Greek gods YA novel, Lightning Thief, Percy
Jackson,
and I was watching this, and it was like, for some reason I could tell that was the moment where I could just see like the whole like industry side of it, because it's preposterously like low budgeted. Mm-hmm. I was like watching this thing, and it just felt like community theater, and then also like that it just was like, this is just like Hogwarts, like this is like this is for me. When I was watching it, it was like, oh, and then you're Percy Jackson, you're the son of so and so, and you've got superpowers. Now we got to send you off to the school where you're going to learn. And to me, it was just like, oh, you literally just copied like a process, And I know it's based on books and stuff, and some people say the books are better. But if something seems to be like just like kind of cashing in on something, especially because of my experience, then it just takes me out of it, because it's just, I can just kind of see the seams of the art. But yeah, I mean, I can fall in love with something really big and dumb. My guilty pleasure is the Fast and Furious series, which
who would have thought?
And it's just that to me is like tongue in cheek, when they're driving cars through skyscrapers, and they're landing in another skyscraper.
It's just mindless summer entertainment.
Because if you do it well, right?
Right. I mean, come on. They're like secret agent street racers. I mean, at this point, right? Like, who would have thought? Like, that's one of the the craziest
they're
ones.
They're stopping, like, yes, they're literally like stopping like international like break off like governments.
Right.
Like,
I mean,
from like, it's like wait.
They're parachuting out of cars or out of planes in their cars. Like, it is preposterous. But
and the CIA is like, shit, you need to get us like street racers.
Right. Oh man, when all else fails, we need the street racers.
And but I think it's like, but the quality of filmmaking that they put into them,
for sure,
is really high. So I can totally respect that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm like.
No, it's cool. So
back to
like, So with the guilty pleasure, so what would you say, and especially like with what you're talking about, like as far as the corporateness of things, what do you think could change then for the better? Because we see that all the time, right? Like the YA thing. Holy crap, it was like a YA explosion, young adult. For those who don't understand YA, young adult. So we're talking that was, and what do you think kicked that off? Do you think it was Harry Potter?
I think it was Harry Potter. So I think so. Let me break it down from like my
I'm doing air
Here
quotes,
we go. Okay. Industry insider. So the whole point of what YA and what YA was, or at least what the people in the industry think was why it was successful, is because it created this. It was totally like a childhood fantasy. So like an important part of that story is like there can't be adults around.
Right.
You remember Harry Potter leaves his adults to go to Hogwarts, and like
right.
Hogwarts is like a school for kids, right? So it's like kids are running around. Kids have taken over the asylum. So
kids have taken over the asylum.
But it's written in a way that like both kids and adults can kind of take part
right.
in this like fun fantasy. So it has to be like a fun fantasy, sure. And there has to be like romantic hookups. So there's like two people have to like be in love, or like they're going to be pushed apart.
The cliches there.
Like, so essentially there's all of these contrivances, and the contrivance has to be about like this fantasy of being a teenager without parents anymore, because like this is the age where you begin to like hate your parents.
Right.
You have a magic power, right? So there has to be something magic and special about you, because you're this kid who just spends all his time in his or her room reading books and stuff. So it's just this really like fantasy like thing. And I mean, even if you look at like the violent dystopic YA with Hunger Games, like
Hunger Games,
they're taken away from their parents, and that right. Mm-hmm. So that's like a super important part, is that they be taken away.
And the main character, like there was something special about her, right? I mean, she could shoot a bow really good.
She's the best,
right? Yeah. She's the best. She stands up against everything.
There's always that like when I mentioned before Hogwarts, that was just like a euphemism. So everything there has to be like the fun way where it's like a boarding school for cool nerdy kids. So that, to me, when that got super successful, it just became like a formula, and everything just had to abide by that formula. It didn't have to be good. And I think, I like, in my opinion, that Percy Jackson movie, because I just watched like a lot of movies, was like the worst. Example of that, because I literally think they didn't care. And I mean, honestly, watching that, because they had some fight scenes, and it's just like it's like a community theater fight scene. And to me, I was watching this thing, and it's like, I mean, just my knowledge of like the industry, I felt like they just like ran through this so quickly
because they're trying to get it out.
Yeah, because the director like didn't do anything. They're just like, can you turn this in for $20 million?
Well, isn't that what it turns into? It's like, hey, this is what's hot right now. We got to cash in while it's still hot, because it does. It goes through periods of different things, like the YA thing. What was the other one? With Shailene Woodley, whatever her name is, the Insurgent,
Divergent,
the Divergent series. I mean, that one died. It was supposed to turn into a TV show at one point, because they were like, yeah, we're just not going to make the last one, because they missed the wave. Like they started, and then it wasn't doing as good as Hunger Games, which was, I mean, they were similar stories, and then I hit a heart and it's making noise. And then, I mean, like, it just kind of fizzles out. I mean, they finished the Maze Runner one. They finished that one up at least. But it goes to those tropes, and it's funny because it's almost like the pairs, right? So, what was it? Deep Impact and Armageddon and Volcano and Dante's Peak. And, like, you get these, like, in pairs where it's like, oh man, this is what's hot right now. And the YA thing just kind of took off like crazy, because you had like the mystical YA, then you had the dystopian stuff, and zombies was like a huge thing for a little bit. And it is interesting. And do you think is that all it is? Is just a cash grab to try to like cash in on those things? Or
I mean, I'm not the expert to talk about industry
now
trends.
It's superheroes.
But So everything's going to run by trends. It's a lot more corporate than how things were done before. Everything's like intellectual property or IP.
Yeah.
You could probably listen to maybe other podcasts that have guests who are better than me, more experience than me. But so the general trend is going to be, it's going to be away from like original work, because Hollywood doesn't really, and again, I'm not the expert on this, but they're not really buying original scripts anymore. If you remember back maybe to the 80s and 90s, like every movie was
something different, right?
Yeah, it was just its own original idea, and like literally that started because there was a guy at a typewriter who just came up with an original idea and explored it and then ended, like beginning, middle, end. He wrote it.
But now it's like sequel after sequel after sequel after sequel.
Because the corporation owns it. So now it's like corporate owned intellectual property. So what they They buy comic book franchises. They buy books that have like book series, and what they try to do is so everything has to deliver. So it's not about, it's just what their corporate model is now. It's not about making one movie and selling that. It's about making a series of movies. Are you going to have toys?
Right.
Are you going to have
it's
TV
the whole
spin-off?
marketing machine. Yeah.
I mean, there's a big thing like, if you really want to get insidery into Hollywood, and maybe I'll tell this anecdote and we can move on. So like the Lego movie, and this is just what I read. I could be wrong about this. I love the Lego movie, but the big thing about releasing the Lego movie overseas and in China is that Chinese kids don't play with Legos. Now Chinese kids play with Legos, right?
Opened up a whole new market.
Yeah, because if you just put these toys in China, they're like, "What the fuck is?" You got the little thing on his head, you stick it. They don't understand it, right? Now
they got it.
They got it. So it's yes. So not to get super cynical, but that's why I kind of left. I mean, everyone has their own reasons, but I thought that.
It's a business. At the end of the day, though, that part is a business, and I understand that. I always did appreciate when the bigger companies would have like those sub companies that would focus on more of those. So it was like Fox Searchlight used to do it. I don't know if they're still as active. Well, was Miramax one of them that kind of went off and did like the weirder?
Well, Miramax
stuff?
is owned by Disney,
right?
Fox Searchlight.
So it was like they always had these like little smaller companies that would actually go produce those ones and the less safe things.
Well, yeah. So this is another interesting observation. Despite the fact that everything is super like corporate now, content is like better than ever. I mean, actually, if you think about it, like just what's available to you,
great stuff released,
and even stuff that's going to be on Netflix, or even stuff that's going to be even like theatrical stuff, because like theatrical is kind of dying because people are staying at home with Netflix and streaming. But there's amazing stuff that's getting released today.
For sure.
So like for all of the people who complain on the internet, like corporations are taking over, it's incredible what's getting out there.
So what do you think would be like an example of like some, I don't know, name like 5 if you can, quality movies that you feel in this current climate of the corporateness that have, and I did air quotes, but they were like under the table, corporateness, that you think are like really high quality movies that have made it to theatrical release. And
okay, so I would say that there's a filmmaker named Jeremy Saulnier. He made Green Room and Blue Ruin. Like Blue Ruin is kind of a little infamous film from the independent film scene.
He also did Hold the Dark, right?
He just came out with Hold the Dark on Netflix.
You know what's really funny that you just mentioned that guy? Yeah. I have played video games for 10 years with a very close friend of him.
Oh, wow.
He's been in some of those movies.
Oh, wow. Because he did before they did Murder Party.
Yep,
so
Murder Party. He was in Murder Party, too.
This is a guy who made movies. Like, Murder Party is a great, I think it's on Netflix streaming. It's like...
Really?
Yeah, I think it's like $10,000, but tiny budget, and it's absolutely ridiculous.
He said those guys have been doing that. What's the other one? Mason or Macon?
Macon.
Yeah, he's part of that whole group of friends. The guy that I play games with, he's like, they've been doing that for years, and finally it's paying off.
But you should really check out, to those listening, Blue Ruin.
Blue Ruin was good.
It's an amazing film, and it's made for about $40,000 because the point of the movie is very, very simple. It's a very, very simple movie. It's a very dark and violent movie, if that's your thing. It's about a revenge mission that goes awry and turns into a nightmare for all those involved, and it totally grabs you. And to think that this one dude from like Virginia or like Connecticut, he's not from Hollywood, doesn't have a lot of connections, was able to find a small investment, $40,000. Unfortunately, in the film world, $40,000 is very small investment, and he made that movie. Yeah, and a lot of low budget, because I work with low budget filmmakers a lot. A lot of people have used that as like the new that's the new Clerks of this era, which is this guy found $40,000 and you are on the edge of your seat, and like. I mentioned it to a friend of mine, and he said, that movie's creepy. I didn't like it. It creeped me out. And I'm like, no, that's the point. Like with it 10 minutes into this movie, it like sticks its finger into your rib, and it doesn't like let go. And you are like and that's what's great about it, is that I think if you can do that.
I liked Green Room too. Green Room was a very intense movie. And talk about a fucking awkward situation to be in. Like just the club that they played in. Go see Green Room too, because it was a very intense movie. The way things happen. Again, another violent one. You'll see some familiar faces.
Right. What else? I'm trying to think of. there was a film called This Is Martin Bonner.
Don't think I've seen
And
that one.
Chad Hartigan is the filmmaker. He made another film called Morris from America, but This Is Martin Bonner was very cheap, and it's a very simple film about like just a dude in Reno who is like a lapsed Catholic who helps an ex-con like rehabilitate to society. But it's a very simple film, and it makes you cry at the end.
Yeah.
These are all from this. Trying to think of like very small budget films, but the filmmakers kind of use this small thing and they kind of like launch to like a larger career. Now I'm drawing a blank. I'll get back to you.
There's quite a few. So like one of the ones that I've liked, I like the writer, and he did all three was like Sicario, Hell or High Water, and what was the last one? God, I can't remember now. With Jeremy Renner.
The sniper movie.
Yeah. God, why?
Taylor Sheridan.
God, what is? I can't remember what the movie is right now. No, I can't remember now. Yeah. Anyway, that writer, I really like the writing in those. Like Hell or High Water is funny. My girlfriend really likes Sicario, and she watched that one over and over again, and she really liked the one that was with the Native Americans in the winter. Right. But Hell or High Water, she wouldn't even give it a chance, and I was like, man, it was so good. But so like it was a bigger budget, obviously, but that was to me was like, okay, at least like there's still some emphasis on a good story over just the big overblown budget. Moonlight was a great movie too, and I've talked to people where they could relate to that movie, the three different periods that were told there, and again, like that's not a traditional big movie, and yeah, it was like one of the awards darlings, but it was a really good story and it had really good production value. So,
and thank you for mentioning Sicario. Like, I think that's a good example because that filmmaker, Denis Villeneuve, he's French Canadian, and a lot of his movies are great. I think he did Arrival.
So Arrival.
Like, yep. Every movie he makes is like very unique, and he found a way in this current climate of crazy corporate filmmaking to make interesting stuff. And now I thought, if you saw it from this past year, Hereditary.
Yes.
Which is a movie that just twists your stomach into a knot. And like that guy he was just a dude who had a script and he found a way to find the money
that one
for
went
it.
over. I watched that with my son and my mom, and it went over their heads. Like the very end part, they're like, "What?" And I was like, "I got it."
Yeah, the king of hell, man.
Yeah, no, that was one of those. See, like I like where it doesn't rely on the jump scares. I mean, that car scene though, fuck, that I was not prepared for. Fuck.
Yeah, and again, like we were talking about earlier, of like a movie you're watching and you don't know what's coming next.
Yeah,
that's a movie where you go, what? No spoilers, but about half hour into the movie, you go, well, what is this movie going to be now? Like, you know,
because you're like, what the?
It's like a hard reboot.
Yeah.
After like punching you in the stomach.
For sure.
There's a British film called Kill List.
Yes, I've seen Kill List.
Yeah, Kill List. That director was supposed to kind of be a big deal, and then he just fizzled out. I think
that was a topic I was just going to bring up. But keep going. So,
but I think Kill List is a movie that you have no idea. It's not for everyone, but it's like a horror. It's a horror movie.
It's a slower movie too. It's a slow burn.
But what I like about it is that, and it's also low budget.
Yes, very.
So again, if you're a low budget filmmaker and you're looking for something, see Blue Ruin and see Kill List. Actually, those two movies I feel like are very similar. And that you don't know in Kill List what's going to happen next. It's two hitmen who live in the suburbs. You know,
they're tasked with was it like a list of there was a list of people, but like it's a total twist at the end.
And you don't know what's coming for them, and clearly things are not what they seem. And where it goes, it goes in its own direction. It just wants to go in its own direction. It's not going to be satisfying. You know, it's not going to be like, oh, and this is the second act, and this is and then he saves the girl.
It doesn't follow like the normal structure, like the normal story arc, like the hero's journey, for sure. So that was my question I was going to say. So what? Obviously, being like a low budget or an independent filmmaker, and you find that success, right? How often or do you see, so like M. Night Shyamalan will be a great example of someone that was like, oh, this guy's making great stuff, and then just, right? So like you said, Kill List, oh, he was supposed to be this up-and-comer, and then just kind of fizzled. Like, how easy do you think it is for that to happen, where they make their name on certain styles, and then they become part of that Hollywood machine where maybe now they're not making those things as personal projects as they started off doing, and it does kind of spiral out of control.
Oh yeah,
Because Shyamalan's probably the biggest known example at this point.
yeah. And I'm kind of amazed by that. By I don't know.
And then he almost kind of makes a comeback, and then it's kind of like,
Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's. I don't know. I don't want to make any judgments, but I'll spill the tea. I think he just likes money. I don't know. I think he just really likes money. Yeah, he continues to make like Hollywood work. He could kind of do whatever he wants. I don't know. I seriously am baffled by his decisions, like especially with his big investment into Avatar.
Yeah.
The Last Airbender. He could kind of do whatever he wants, and he starts rushing towards like what's trendy, and then of course he makes like a really bad movie that by the way, he put his name all over. If you look at the marketing of that film, it literally says like written for the screen, produced, directed, and he puts his name all over it. And then hey,
do you think though that becomes an issue when you try to wear too many hats?
Maybe, maybe for a smaller film, yes. I don't think that. I think Shyamalan shouldn't have. I don't know. I mean, first off, is I think M. Night Shyamalan also is a brand. So
For sure.
So if you're listening and you're maybe a casual moviegoer, the fact that the directors is very intentional.
Right.
They're trying to brand themselves. Just like how everything is kind of very blatant nowadays with like Instagram influencers and stuff. So he's kind of like a director, but also a bit of an influencer. He could, in my opinion, his brand is kind of burned out. But at the same, like he could do whatever he wants, and he chooses to make these types of films, and the fact that all his films are now part of the same canon. What's the point of? Maybe listen, and I don't want to.
Everyone wants to do
I don't want to knock it. If you
a joined universe, right?
if you like these movies, I don't want to knock it. Like because
some of them were good.
Some of them are really good, and I think that I'll put it this way: it's like I don't think that he's untalented. I'm just very perplexed by the choices he makes. Because he could, I don't know.
So like the thing that originally, besides Unbreakable, but like with like The Sixth Sense, he had the twist, right? And that started becoming his thing, like the twist. Every movie was like, all right, where's the twist? Do you think like sometimes filmmakers, directors, writers get caught in that like what worked for them the first time, then they just keep trying to do it, and then it starts to be like, yeah, we know there's a twist coming.
Yeah, I think that's true for like almost all artists. There's a great quote. I don't know where it came from, but it said that like eventually like all artists become like a parody of themselves. I think there's for me that's most seen in Wes Anderson, and the fact that he does these movies and they're just so like overly
Quirky.
designed. Yeah, they're quirky, but like just look at the costume, the color, like the paint on the walls.
Yes.
It has to complement the costume. Literally everything. It's like it's like
hyper.
Yeah, it's like a painting. Everything is like so well like designed, and it's hyper designed. And I think that the problem is that that's like the artifice, and he got more focused on that than he got focused on
the story,
telling a story,
right.
Making interesting characters, because he has to be the guy that has the quirky movies.
Right.
So all of the periphery things become more important, and all the fundamental things fall to the wayside. I think he's made some amazing films, but there's definitely a time when I watch it and I go, I think, I'm gonna.
Well, with his movies, that's a Wes Anderson movie. Like,
exactly.
Because of the style.
So for him, it's more important that it looks a certain way than it is like a good movie. And I would say it's like, well, hey, he does his own thing, and I don't want to criticize that. But for me, that's to answer your question. It's like it happens a lot. I remember you probably have your favorite band that they put out their debut album, and it's amazing. And someone explained it to me. I think they interviewed like the XX. Remember that band from like the 2000s? They're like a hipster. They're like an indie hipster band. I think they're from New Zealand or England. And they had this amazing album, and it's a guy and a girl, and they're almost like murmuring on the train, playing their guitars.
Okay,
and,
don't remember that. But anyway,
and if you probably listen to their songs, they put it in trailers. They were kind of like a hot thing, and they were young. They were like 17 when they got big, and they put out an album. And the second album was just the exact same thing as the first album, which happens to a lot of bands.
Right.
And they answer
because it worked.
And they don't know what worked because they just went into the studio and they played some songs. They don't know what in the song hit with audiences. They just did this thing, right? They were just the XX, this band.
Right.
And so I kind of feel like you don't know how to like self-analyze yourself. Like you don't know what part of your brand or your artistic process is successful. So you just copy that and then you turn into this parody of yourself.
And I think like I think that could be a couple different things, right? So a lot of bands, yes, they get caught in that cycle. I think it's kind of a twofold scenario. They get caught in that cycle because it worked, and that's what the fans expect. Because I've also seen bands not put out, try to grow and do something different, and their fan base like pan them for it. Oh, where's this? I'm looking for that. It's like, cool, that was last album. This is where we're going now. Actually, I give a lot of respect. Linkin Park put out an album. I want to say it's 1,000 Suns. In the booklet, because I still will some artists I'll go buy the actual CD so I can get the booklet and everything. But it was literally like, we didn't make this for you. We made this for us. This is where we wanted to go. If you don't like it, oh well. If you like it, awesome. Like that was, and that was kind of refreshing at the time. It was a different. There was a lot of filler tracks that were just noises or things like to elicit an emotion. But there was a lot of God, I can't remember what his name was. There was a lot of quotes about God, what was it? The guy they consider the father of the nuclear bomb, Oppenheimer, or something like that. Yeah, like a lot of his quotes were there. Like they took dialogue and stuff. It was really, really good, actually. I liked it a lot, but there was a lot of respect that I gave them for that because they went in a different direction. There was a message they were trying to relay. They didn't get the best praise from their audience, but it was like, this is where we're going. And I think there are artists that are afraid to take that step, afraid to grow like that because of that. They're going to lose those album sales. And then also, once you start making it big, I mean, it's a little different nowadays because you can self-release a lot of stuff. But with movies like that wide release, you want that distribution. That's a lot harder. I feel like you start getting caught up in that machine, right? That, hey, we need to see this kind of thing. This is what you do. This is what you've done to make sure that it's going to be profitable.
Right. And for most of the entertainment industry, unless you're working with like a major record label or you're working with a studio, like you're not really getting paid that much.
Right.
You know, we earlier just talked about Blue Ruin. You know, I know this because I put budgets together for indie films. When you have $40,000, the director doesn't get paid.
Right.
You know, like the director doesn't get a salary at a $40,000 movie.
You're making sure everybody else is paid.
Yeah, you're paying the crew guys who are setting up the lights, the cameraman. You're paying for a lunch and then
licenses, stuff like that. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So so if you want to actually get paid, like to actually get compensated, because hey, when you're 50, 60, 70, you might not be the Rolling Stones. You need a little bit of a nest egg to retire on. Like you have to work through the corporate side of things because that's because you have to have your album has to be released in all 50. Well, we're no longer in Sam Goody days, but like if your movie has to be released wide release in order to get paid anything that's really the proper compensation. But I did like your example of Linkin Park because their first album what was it called?
Hybrid Theory.
Hybrid Theory. It was on the tip of my tongue. That sold for, this is back in the day, so like we're dating ourselves. We were just off mic, we were talking about our upcoming 20th high school reunion.
Yeah.
But oh my God, how did we get this old, Jason?
I don't know.
But to the younger viewers, that album sold, and this is back in the days when an album would be on the charts for weeks and weeks.
Right, and actually in stores.
That album charted with new sales for like a year.
Yeah.
I remember, and that, so I think that like, I don't know if anyone from the 2000s had a more success, a rock band from the 2000s had a more successful debut than Linkin Park. So like there's that pressure, right? So it's like, I'm sure for their first 5 or so years, they just toured and made a ton of money.
Oh yeah, I mean there was
that one sound.
There was SNL skits about Linkin Park concerts.
Yeah, you're literally part of the culture. So then, like all of a sudden, you go to these millions of people around the world. It's like, oh, we're gonna slightly do things differently. Like no, like you could do the very comfortable track, and I'm sure there's a lot of pressure that way, in that direction. So. And then
not just pressure from the fans, but pressure from your producers, from your distributors, from whoever is behind the scenes. There's that pressure there, for sure.
But getting back to more like independent work.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to. So I was going to segue or flip it real
Yeah.
quick, change gears. Your experiences. How? So you put out.
Right.
You've worked on a couple passion projects, right?
Yes.
How'd that go? How'd that come about? What were the struggles that you went through? Like, what was that process like?
Right. So after working in the industry for a couple of years, I was like just very frustrated, creatively frustrated, which just happens to everyone. And then you could be working at just a regular 9 to 5 job and get creatively frustrated. And I had some friends who stayed in Michigan. So I was born here in Michigan. I was raised here. I had some friends who made independent films in Michigan, outside of the industry. They were quite successful. So I moved back with the intent of being an independent filmmaker. I had this vision. And so I've made 3 shorts that we had a real crew on. We wrote, directed. I'm working on a feature right now.
Are they out anywhere? Is there any way anyone can see them?
Yeah, I can. I have some of them. Yes, they're online. I'll provide you guys with the links. And so I'm now working as like an artist. Thankfully, I just started this job, as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, of the Cinetopia Film Festival. But really, that work is kind of few and far between for creatives that are out working outside of New York and LA. And I've done gig economy work, creative work, freelance work. That's definitely a struggle. But what I want to do is keep my time open. That's the thing that a lot of creatives do. It's definitely a dilemma that I went through over these last couple of years over like, do I get the 9 to 5 job or do I stay freelance? Because the freelance job that I left when I came aboard this film, Cinetopia, which by the way is a 9 to 5 job. So essentially I'm being an event coordinator and a film programmer, so I'm basically coordinating an event, which is, a real career for other people. Before I started that job, I was doing real estate photography. So I know, Jason, you put out that book of these crazy stories of being a delivery driver.
What the truck?
Yeah, what the truck. And it immediately made me think about my experiences of going into other people's homes and taking pictures.
It's atrocious. Like, from my experience, someone's coming to your house to bring. I was delivering like appliances or basically anything you would buy at that store. I was delivering to your house if you wanted it delivered. And there was so many times where I would come into a house with like your big ass appliance and there's like no way through your house because it's just so much shit everywhere. And it's like, come on, are you serious? Like, that we're coming. We're going to have to get into this room and you're not going to clear the way. I've had to tell people, no, let us know when it's cleaned up and then we'll come back because we can't get it through all this. And it's not my job to move all your stuff around.
They probably expected you were going to clean, right? Oh, Jason, you're going to come over to my house and clean my house, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've been to legit hoarder houses for sure. Like legit. Yeah. I've been to some pretty scary ones. I've been to ones where it was just bad. It was real bad. I don't know how this guy let his mom live that way, but I was like, I got kind of furious. Yeah, it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I get requests. I used to get requests like, so you're going to Photoshop this out, right? I'm like, you mean this entire wall of hoarder shit over here? Like the TV guides back from 1977. I'm just going to, oh yeah, oh right, in Photoshop. They just added that feature.
Yeah, there's a button there.
It's called hoarder get rid of. And then there's, it's a lot of requests, people trying to make a lot of money off their homes, so like they're very nervous. And then there was a house with a bunch of haunted German dolls that were there was a room that I walked
like legit in. Haunted or just looked like they should have been haunted.
I went into a house where so typically for you in the audience, real estate photographer, it's very simple. I show up with my photo gear. The realtor is there to kind of walk me through the house. Maybe they have some requests, but it's pretty basic. Their requests show that. Oh really, the living room? Yes, I'll show the living room. But people, they're kind of like watch over my shoulder, making sure I'm trying to do a good job. And you just take pictures of every home,
right?
And then it's quite simple. Occasionally, what's great is they just give you the lockbox. You go in, perfect. I don't have to deal with anyone.
Right.
But most of the time, it's guided. I show up at one house, very large house. Think about Bloomfield Hills, kind of area. The realtor says, "Great, you're here. This is the homeowner," and then leaves, which is okay. And the homeowner is a very, very old German lady, like 80, 90 years old. She goes, okay, she's speaking with a thick accent. She's like, "This is my home. Everything's like immaculate." She's like, "I need to go to the store. I'm going to leave." and leaves. And that's also weird because it just...
Hi, stranger you've never met.
Right.
Leave me alone in your house.
Right. And they said, I'll be back in 20 minutes. I'll be back before you leave. And so I start taking pictures, and I go into one of the bedrooms. And the bed is filled with these scary dolls that all have red eyes.
What?
They all have red eyes. I'll show you pictures. They have red eyes.
Okay.
And now I had to... Now, this is like bizarre. This is very... First off, is that... I watch movies. The first thing I think of, House of the Devil.
Yeah, you're right.
This is House of the Devil. I'm being trapped in this house. They're going to take my body. I'm a young... Look at how... I'm an attractive young man. They're going to put their spirit into my body and push me out. This is it, right?
That's one of the negatives of being a film fan and watching so many movies. I do the same thing, too. Like, I'm always like, so this is the part when something's going to happen.
I literally had to like put my camera gear down and like Google is this normal? Did somebody paint the eyes red? And I found out that it's actually a natural aging process when you have these like
Really?
60-year-old dolls. Sorry, I didn't.
Their eyes just naturally become possessed.
They're these dolls called the Gutz dolls. They're kind of the American girl dolls of Germany. They're like these very famous. They're probably worth like a lot of money. They're collector items, and they're handmade because they're super expensive and they're German. And so to make the blue, because they're blue, of course it has to be blue eyes, right? They have the most, they have the most like bluest of blue eyes,
right?
But it's actually layers of paint. So they put this like light pink because the blue will actually shine better if there's something behind it to kind of reflect. So it's like these like very thin layers of paint.
So these dolls scared the shit out of you so much that you now know the whole manufacturing process.
For half an hour, I was yes. I literally put my camera down. I opened my phone and I'm just like Google. I'm just like, and I for 20 minutes. Yeah, I just had to know the origin of what this was. I was like so angry and frustrated that like so the blue over time the UV I guess deteriorates the blue paint and the blue eyes turn pink. Now I don't know why you wouldn't hire like a painter to repaint the eyes of your fucking dolls. Anyways,
that's how you know they're original.
Maybe and just the fucking bed of just like the children
bed
of the damned, just and I turned a corner. I literally because the bed was facing
movie reference.
The bed, yeah, exactly. So like I walk into the bedroom and I take a picture from the entrance, and then I walk to the next corner and I turn around and as soon as I turn around, it's like all these dolls looking back at me, being like, "Welcome to hell, Ted."
I never had any experiences like I did have one really weird experience. Mm-hmm. Where I think the guy might have been a serial killer. So I do this delivery, and I forgot what we were delivering, like a hot water heater or dryer or something. And I'm in this basement, and their whole wall on one side of the basement is nothing but movies, just DVDs, just tons. But they're all horror. Just nothing but horror movies. And like as a film fan, I was like, all right, I'm waiting for this guy to come tell me something or whatever. I'm waiting for him to come downstairs. So I'm like looking at the movies, and I'm just like, all right, cool. These are all fucking horror movies. What is going on here? I get it. Some people are horror buffs. But this guy comes down and he's one of those guys that has like that nervous laugh, like he like nervously laughs like in between every friggin' word he's saying, So I'm trying to talk to him and I'm like, oh, so you must be a movie fan, huh? And he's like, oh no, those are my roommates, but he's dead. And I'm like, what the fuck? And my partner said he was outside, like, ready to call 911 because he was like, if you weren't coming out of there, I wasn't going back in that guy's house. I was calling the cops thinking he's killed you because it was just, he had that nervous laughter. He talks about his roommate being dead. Like, the guy just died, like, the week before. And he's, like, laughing. I was like, oh, sorry to hear that. He's like, oh, no, it's not that big of a deal. I was just like, what the fuck? Get me out of this house. So he was probably a serial killer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a basement I went to, and it's always the big houses. It's always the rich people.
Yeah.
And in the basement, there was a little room in the center of the basement. It was like a full kind of like built-in like a full basement, not like it had like it was a plexiglass room. So I think it was like a sex room, so you could sit and watch. It was like sorry.
Oh, you're fine. A sex room.
Yeah, so it was like a sex room. I was trying to find you the picture, man. I'll show you the Galt doll. Yeah, and what was weird is that like I looked up into the basement ceiling.
Right, yeah.
It was just all spider webs. And then on the light switch, there was literally like a speckle of red like a smudging of red, and I thought it was
like a bloody,
like a bloody. But it had to have been paint. I was thinking like because it wouldn't have been red, right? And it was just that, and I was alone. That was a lock box. So all the doors were weighted so they would close. So I'd open up a door and keep it open, but it would close behind me. And it took me a while to realize that was probably like a sex room. It was like a kinky thing because at first it was like right.
There's a fucking plexiglass room just in the
Yeah,
middle
I
of
think
this.
it was. I don't know what it was. It could have been anything because at first I thought it was a recording studio, but plexiglass can't.
No,
can't.
it's not good for that.
It's not soundproof. Then I realized it probably was like a voyeur. It was like a voyeur room. For which is common. I don't want to kink shame anyone in this podcast.
No, whatever. Your own thing. Or it could have been a serial killer.
Yeah. And then he also had that house had the master bedroom was painted salmon, and the had a glass brick shower. So the entire connection between that was one of the most bizarre houses. Okay.
So speaking of sex rooms, this wasn't a sex room, but I was doing a delivery. We were delivering a freezer to a nice brand new house in Troy, and it's middle of summer. I'm wearing short sleeve shirt, shorts, and this Indian fellow answers the door in like a fucking parka, like full blown winter parka, right? And instantly I can hear noises like walk into his living room. He's leading me to his basement to go so I know where this freezer's going so I can measure the doorways and stuff. And up above his fireplace is a giant TV, and it's Club Jenna Jameson. It's just fucking full blown porn. Just like like just going, and I'm like, what the fuck? So then I come out and I'm like, dude, to my partner, I'm like, this guy's just watching porn. And he's like, bullshit. I'm like, dude, it's like surround sound porn, and he's chilling in a parka in the summer. And he's like, bullshit. As soon as we walked in, like, it was still going, just full bore. And we get in the basement, and he's like, what the fuck is going on? And I'm like, I don't know. But that was like, I've never seen a sex room in any of my deliveries, but that was an interesting.
I've never seen sex toys. I've always thought, like, I'm going to find that kinky couple that has sex toys. But I did see a full-blown samurai sword in the bedroom, like leaning up against the little like bedside table. And this was like a good. This wasn't one of those $100 things you buy online. This was like a full-blown like samurai sword, just like leaned up again. And I'm trying to think like, what kind of cosplay? What kind of like what kind of like role play does this involve with like a?
All right, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. Okay. So
you do role play with your wife?
No. My girlfriend's very anti-gun.
Okay.
So like I do have a shotgun because I hunt, but it's like got multiple locks on it, right? So I also have swords, and that used to be what I kept under the bed as a defense weapon because. One, I think that's going to catch someone off guard if they're coming in my house and be like, fuck you. Also took Japanese sword fighting classes, so I can probably kill you with it too. But so that was like, like a baseball bat. Right. I had a sword. So that was, I didn't have it chilling in the corner. It was under the bed, but I could reach under and grab it very quickly. But yeah, that was my weapon of choice for a while.
I think this is performative. There's something, I mean, it was not a stand. Sorry, maybe I have to give some background here because it was so unsettling because like one, it's not on a stand. Some people they have.
Yeah, I have a decorative stand somewhere.
Exactly,
because I have more than one.
These are just the red flags, Jason.
Right.
One, no stand. Two, like this is not a cheap sword, and it's just. And three, it's like too close to the bedroom because the bedroom's a sacred place, right? And like too close to the bed, right? Because you know what I mean, right? And with guns, I come across guns all the time. People are way too laissez. I got to tell you, people are way too laissez-faire with their
guns.
Leaving guns.
That's
out,
why you hear about people. Did you hear a country star? A rising country music star just died because they were shooting a music video and the gun went off. Why would you use a real fucking gun in a music video? Because you're not smart. But yeah. So,
I blame the production company on there. Got to talk to the UPM on that.
Well, everything's so independent nowadays. I could totally see that happening. Who's got money for a replica? Just, I got this gun laying around. Let's use this one. Yeah, no.
Got to talk to the prop master on that.
Right. Yeah, maybe it was the same one that was on The Crow.
Oh man,
another movie reference if you don't know your movie history. But Oh man. So what else you got going on? You had some other stuff you had written down there.
Yeah, right. So I'm also a screenwriting teacher in the gig economy,
Okay.
kind of through a bunch of different things. So I teach screenwriting at the Writers Workshop Detroit. So if you're
Where's that at?
That's in Metro Detroit. It's a writers workshop. They do lots of different writing. So they do like poetry, novel writing if you want to finish your novel, and I teach screenwriting with them. It's great. It's an 8 week course. We talk about feature film writing, but also writing spec scripts for television because television is really hot right now.
Yep.
And yeah, so I really like working with people.
How long have you been doing that?
I've been only doing that for about a year
Okay.
now. But I like bringing in people. A lot of the people that come in are professionals. They've done creative writing in the past. They're teachers. They work in tech or
Right.
something, and they have this interest in actually channeling their creative energy into a script. And so it's great to see people with a little bit of foundation, but not a lot of guidance, and to kind of coach them through like an 8 week class and to like go over all of the
It's always awesome to see people taking that initiative, right? Like after actually going after one of those things. So like, and I didn't really get into much of my film journey earlier, but that was like one of the things, and the reason for doing this podcast too, like to promote people that are doing those things, that are chasing after their dreams, pursuing their passions, however you want to phrase it. I went to film school in Chicago, like 2002. Like I said, I took a year off graduating, and then I was doing a lot of stuff. Like that was the part that sucked, is I was like getting my foot in the door. A lot of the film industry is knowing people and those connections, and I was getting my name out there within the Chicago area, and then I had to move home because I couldn't afford to stay there. And then when I moved back here, I tried to start a nonprofit for specifically aimed at like filmmakers, like trying to get the equipment, network like-minded people, because that's one of the harder parts, right? Like especially back then where cell phone cameras weren't so good and little digital cameras weren't so good. It was like it's hard to have access to all that stuff, to a good computer that can process and edit, to a good camera that's going to actually look decent instead of like really super horribly low budget, right? So it was like my goal had been, let's get that equipment in network, so that way, like if you were interested in directing, or you had a script that you had written and you're looking for people, like this collective group of like-minded people would help you, because that was one of the things I struggled with, was finding people that, it's always easy to find people that say, yeah, I'll do that. It's really hard to find people that have the passion that want to actually do it. So that was where I always struggled with. But then the whole nonprofit thing, like you have to have like a board, you have to have a treasurer, you have to have all these other things, and that I couldn't even find people to help me shoot something on the weekend. That wasn't happening. So I looked into it, got a little book and stuff about it, and didn't end up going anywhere with that. So then after that, I've written a couple like scripts for things that I wanted to shoot. A lot of times it's like I would write with friends in mind, people that I know that could possibly convince them with some pizza and beer to like, act in this thing for the weekend or something. But never actually filmed any of those things. And then it kind of like after that, pregnant, now the 9 to 5, right? And that is interesting, because I am envious to a degree of the freelance kind of like, I'm trying to keep my life open so I can work on the shit I want to do. Obviously, like in a situation with kids and the whole family, it's a lot harder to do that. So like I find my time, when I can make it. But I would love to work on that. Like I am working on a project outside that is going to eventually take some time. But that is that was like my journey. I've always loved film, and I know the moment, two moments that led me in that direction of like, if this was what I could do with my life, this is what I want to do. One was probably around 1 a.m. Watching USA Up All Night, and I saw The Professional, or Leon, for the first time, and I was just like, this fucking movie is amazing. I wish I could do something like this. And then in high school, we had the books to movies class, which was comparing and contrasting the differences between a book and the movie based on that book. And after that, like when I had met with our career counselor or whatever in school, they were like, yeah, film schools are out there. You could totally do film for a living if you wanted to. And it was really cool. It was really refreshing when I went to Columbia College. We did the open house, And it was funny, one guy was like, one of the people doing the open house was like, how many people want to be a director? And I didn't. I just wanted to make film. I didn't know what part I wanted to do. And like everybody raises their hands. And he was like, cool, one of you will. Like, he's like, because your idea of what a director is may not necessarily be what a director is. So you may find that you really just like editing, or you really just like the design part, or you really like cinematography or the sound, right? Like, so it was funny because, and that's what he said, it's the most common thing is people come into it with this preconceived notion of what it is, and then through the experience find out that that's not really what they want to do, which I thought was kind of refreshing to like to have that honest, like, yeah, out of you like 70 people in this room, one of you may end up actually being a director. You may all find yourself doing other things, or may not even like it. And I think that's that was what was kind of cool about that. And that I was able to, and I don't know what your experience was going to a bigger school. I didn't have to do all the prerequisites before getting into actual film classes. I could do them side by side. So like I had, like a basic public speaking and like English, but then I also had aesthetics of cinema, history of cinema. Like I was able to get into some of those film classes to start like learning more of the film stuff before having to complete all these prerequisites things. Was that experience, how was that when you went to the school you went to?
Yeah, so I went to U of M, which is like
big
Michigan.
School.
Yeah, it's a big school. So it's not going to be as specific. It's not going to have all that technical instruction as Columbia, which is something that I definitely noticed, and that a lot of people who were in that program were kind of complaining about. But actually, I'd like to get back to something earlier you said about what you said about working freelance and the positives and negatives. You have to understand, like, it's so obviously creatives, anyone who's in any creative career, you could be a musician, a filmmaker, whatever, a painter. You're gonna, because you need to pay the bills, you're gonna be presented with this dilemma.
For sure. It's a
like,
struggle.
Are you gonna do the 9 to 5, or are you gonna do freelance?
They don't call it a starving artist for nothing.
Exactly. And it's funny to hear you say that, because me, now that I'm in my 30s, I now am looking at a 9 to 5 and be like, oh man, I want that 9 to 5. I think every 22-year-old who's like either out of college or trade school or has, got a little bit of like, they got the desire to be an artist. It's like, they're like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. I could just freelance and I'd have all this time left. Thinking that it's great when I go, hey, listen, like, first off, the grass is always greener, right?
Oh, for sure.
And I think that there's no perfect situation. Also living in LA, there's some people who just had like rich parents, and everyone goes, oh, I wish I could have rich parents. And I'm kind of thinking like, but then you'd just be like Lori Loughlin's daughter, of like, you wouldn't,
wow.
That's my experience of living in LA. And definitely like, there's this term trust fund hipster, which is just somebody with very rich parents who just moved to LA. Maybe they didn't even have a college degree, or they went to film school or something. They just had like, oh, I'm gonna just be rich and dress in expensive clothes and hang out in Silver Lake and start a band, because and then but those people never took it seriously, and they never were successful. So it's this funny, and the reason why I bring that up is that we're now in this weird situation where you have to have some sort of income to manage what it is that you're doing. But you also need to be productive, right? You need to produce, whether it's going to put your album out, you're going to finish your script, you're going to make the movie.
You have to see it through.
You have to see it through. So I'll tell you this. I don't know if my time freelancing was spent properly. I mean, like, to be honest, I don't know if I would have been more productive if I was, I don't know if I was more productive than if I had a 9 to 5 job, because at least, I don't know, with a 9 to 5 job, if you have a little bit more money coming in, that's productivity right there. Right. So like, not being able, like, just you with more money comes more freedom, a little bit more. So, it's what you do with your time as well. So like, it's a weird situation. We could fill up a whole hour of just,
for sure. And I wasn't, and I didn't want it taken as that right, like oh yeah, you just got the life. No, because I understand like there is that opposite side, right? And that's one of the reasons, like, I have a family. I've never been able to take that risk, and I appreciate those people that take that risk, where they're just like, you know what, I'm chasing it. It's funny because one of what this guy Delano Bridges, he's been on my show twice. But one of the things he says is, and he's all about people being creative, but he's in the 9 to 5 world too. But he's like, those are always going to be there. So if you have something that you want to take a crack at, do it, because 9 to 5s, they're not going anywhere. They're always going to be there. So if you fail at whatever you want to try to do, that 9 to 5 job is still going to be there. Not maybe the one that you currently have, but they're not going anywhere. That business model is here to stay for the foreseeable future. So why not just take that risk today and try it? Which to me is a pretty good philosophy, because I think there are too many people that are held back by fear, and that's why I respect like you. Sure, you're finding yourself in the 9 to 5, or like that looks great now, and it can be great because it offers you the stability, the disposable income to pursue some of those things. And I've kind of found myself balancing between those things because of the different jobs that I've done, while also trying to be creative in some fashion. But no, for sure, like that model of lifestyle, the freelance thing, like that is a fear, right? If you're a freelancer, doesn't mean you're going to have consistent work, right? Like that is a scary thing. And it takes some balls, I think, to move in in that direction. But then also, I think it's a good thing to recognize, like, hey, like I really want to be serious about this, because I think too, there's too many people that want to do something but aren't passionate enough to actually see it through.
Yeah.
And so you find those people that are like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this, but they're not all into it. They're not full bore, like you said. Like they're not finishing up that project, putting out that album, because at least then, even if you do, you can say you did it, you tried it. If it doesn't work out,
yeah, at least you're doing it,
right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, it's like this big dilemma. Like there's people I respect on Twitter where they're like, oh, when you're in your 20s, you're like, I don't want to ever work a 9 to 5, fuck 9 to 5, and then in their 30s, like, so how can I get this 9 to 5 going? It's this. I think it's, and as I said earlier, it's grass is always greener. I was just having a conversation with my coworker because I have a coordinator that works with me in this new job, and she came from advertising, and to her this is the most creative thing ever. She came from a very corporate background,
right.
And this is like, now she's working with a film festival, and we're bringing creative talent and stuff. And the irony for me is like, well, I'm coming from freelance work, actually media creation, and I'm transferring into this. To me, this is more corporate. It's this weird middle section,
right?
So so it's all about perspective, and
for sure.
And I also believe that, like, even with kids, it's like, I'll tell you this, like, I waste a lot of time, and even when I was freelance, if I have like a day to myself or half of a day to myself, because maybe I have a shoot that comes up at like 2:00 in the afternoon, from when I wake up until like 1:30 when I'll leave for that shoot, I'm trying to be productive, but maybe I'm not being as productive as I could be, right? So that could be like wasted time. But if I say had like a family or something, and like I got like an hour of like my time to myself, maybe I would take that 1 hour and really like push hard and like
right.
get some writing done. Like, okay, I need to get 5 pages done, of a script.
Yep.
And I'm just going to do that. No, I can't speak to that accurately because I don't have any children. But I'm but do you hear what I mean?
I can tell you.
Yeah.
Fuck that. I'm gonna relax for this hour.
Okay.
No, like me, I'll play video games.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'll watch a movie, and there's often times where I will get done with watching a movie or just playing some video games where I'm like, fuck, I could have just been doing something better. I could have been finishing this project. I could have been editing this audio file and getting everything ready. Like, there's definitely times where I have that, but then I also recognize, like, there's just times you have to unplug, and that's the harder part for me, is being a parent and also being a leader in the corporate world, is like I'm constantly working because I'm dealing with attitudes and behaviors there, and then I come home and I got a 15-year-old that's giving me attitudes and crazy behavior here, and like the family dynamics. So for me, that hour where, yeah, sometimes I could be productive, and I get down on myself because, again, like I have things that I want to accomplish, and for sure, I think that's a big problem with a lot of people, is that you're not always at max production all hours of the day or taking, better time management. But sometimes, man, you just got to unplug and just do something for you to just relax. And because for me, that's how I manage things. Like I unplug, you know what I mean? And so, but because I want to accomplish things, like I do get down on myself. Like, fuck, you could have just been doing this. Like I tell my girlfriend that all the time. She's like, what's wrong with you? I'm just like, just fucking wasted half a day playing a video game. It's like, yeah, I beat that game, but fuck, man, I could have been getting the boat ready. I could have been writing. Like when I wrote that book, like what really kicked it into high gear was when I had my surgery. I was unemployed for a month. I finished writing that in a month because I had nothing else to do but play video games and watch all of Breaking Bad in 1 month. That was literally what I did. So in 1 month, I finished a book, watched all of Breaking Bad, beat Destiny, and taught myself how to program basic Android and built an app. That was what I did in 1 month when I had nothing else to do.
Yeah, and that's a great start of productivity. Well, I'll tell you this. Freelancers waste time all the time, too. I would say that like you think you feel shame for not getting things done. Imagine not getting things done and you're not even making the salary of a good 9-to-5 job. So there's, I mean, I would say that in this new thing that I've done with my life when I moved to Michigan, because it was kind of a crazy job. I was making okay money. I was making pretty good money for a single man in LA editing. So I kind of settled into post-production, which is great because that's going to be actually year-round. It's not going to be seasonal, like working on sets.
Right.
I walked away from that to do freelance work in Michigan and to be like essentially an artist as an independent filmmaker. And it's all you. It's all about your production. Like I started working with goal planning, which is something that I encourage people to do. It's something that's, but even still, even with goal planning, even with all that stuff, like, there's no coach anymore, right?
No.
You're not in school, like, no, you got no deadlines. Your deadline is not to get morbid, it's the day you die. And then there's a lot of shame because listen, there's a lot of people who say like, oh, I'm 30 something and I can't haven't done my book or haven't done my movie, where it's like, and again, like you mentioned that shame of like I wasted 4 hours. Well, maybe you shouldn't feel that much shame. Not that I'm saying that you felt that way. It's like maybe you could have. I mean, maybe a better way to think of it is that you could have put in 2 hours of video games, and then in 2 hours, because the way how creative minds work is you get on yourself all the time. I shouldn't have done any video games.
Right,
and I should have written this, and I should be at this thing, and so Orson Welles made his first movie when he was 16 or something. You realize but also like you don't have to be you don't have to work it towards any type of those goals, and like don't think about the past because we're all going to waste time. Yeah. Steve Jobs wasted time, but it's like, work towards the future and goal planning really, really helps.
I think sometimes that wasted time is when I come up with some of my better ideas, just because I'm turning off. I'm not trying so hard to think of something or to work on something or focus on something. And I think that sometimes that creativity, it comes from those periods of wasting time.
Yeah, and I when I started this job, so I started about a month ago, and it was me and another person, and a lot of work just got thrown into my lap because it's just like, oh great, the festival's happening in May. These are all the things you need to get done. And the first week was just trying to get our heads around like what was things that were under our like responsibility. And I just remember being very stressed out. And then I went to lunch, like by myself. And I said like, I'm gonna go to lunch. And as soon as I sit down to lunch, I just had all these creative ideas. And it was literally just once I took myself away from the regular responsibilities. Okay, we're going to sit down, we're going to be at a desk, we're going to coordinate this, and, are we going to get back to these emails? That just blocks you up, or at least me. But then once you sit down to lunch and there's no screen in front of me, I immediately start thinking of solutions.
It starts flowing, yeah. You know what I used to do is I had a recorder, an audio recorder in my car, just for when I was driving. If I had an idea, I could just be like... to try to record it, but then I would listen back to myself and be like, "What the fuck were you thinking?" But
I use Evernote. That's a free app for those listening. You can what I like to do is you can have that on a desktop on your computer, but it can also have a mobile app, and it's just note taking. Yeah. But I actually like the format of it because what I do is I start an idea on Evernote. So I'll start a new app, write it, and then I'll revisit it. I'm pointing to Jason's computer right now. I'll revisit it on the computer, and then you can actually like long form with a keypad. Type it out because I'm an old person and I have to type on a keypad.
Yeah. No, I do the same thing. Like, so when I was thinking of this show, right, and trying to figure out like what I wanted to call it, like I had a running note in my phone that I use a different note app, but I was doing the same thing. Like I was like, this is what possible names. These are the episodes. Like I had the first 7-ish episodes already outlined, like what I wanted the topics to be, who I wanted the guests to be, like who would fit this. So like that was kind of where I did that too, right? That initial game plan. And then I have a OneNote file on my computer too for like show notes and stuff like that too, that I'll do just to like one. It saved me really good. Like one episode, the audio went wonky and it was actually recording through the computer mic and not through the microphones that we're using. So all the audio that we listened to a lot of music videos, didn't record. So I had to literally go back and find where did it start, find the video, but I had notes of like everything we listened to. So that at least saved me to a degree. But that was the worst edit. It took so long to edit that one episode just because of that. It was like a 2.5 hour conversation because some time flies. Like right now we're at an hour and a half.
Wow.
It does fly, but we can wrap this one up. But it's awesome to see someone that's kind of, and again, it's the other side, right?
Right.
It's always greener. Like someone that's done something with their life and had experiences that earlier in my life, I wanted those experiences. I wanted to do that. I have a relative that worked on quite a few movies, on the Superman versus Batman, on one of the Transformers, and he tried for a long time to like kind of break in, and eventually it was just like, it's too much traveling, can't have a family. You know, he was doing more of like the shoots, and just decided to 9 to 5 it. So, I mean, it's I don't know, it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm even looking like trying to do like teaching full time actually.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's awesome. Yeah. And you just find that time in your spare time to be creative. Like I've got guests booked up until, I'm into May now for scheduling these. Some weekends I'm double booked, like next weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Then I'm trying to work on that screenplay / script, whatever. I'm trying to work on that too. Like just had a call yesterday that we were on a conference call for close to like an hour discussing that. We had a meeting here and then recorded an episode too. Actually, I thought about recording the whole creative process and releasing that as a
nice
kind of little series. If it'll happen, I don't know yet. But it's now it's just trying to do that 9 to 5 thing. At least if like the teaching thing is something that you're passionate about as well, that helps.
Yeah, and just the idea of having the summers off. I don't know what a lot of filmmakers do actually. Some more like smaller like filmmakers do is they do that because it gives them this one time. It's like, can you put your film together over the summer?
Right. So let me ask you this before we wrap up. Mm-hmm. For anyone that was aspiring to get into film, whether it's production, it's doing the shootings, post-production, any of that stuff, anybody that wants to do that, what would you recommend as a starting place? Where would you recommend them to go, or what to get involved in? Because that's one of the struggles like that I personally went through, was just not knowing who to go to.
What I found is go to places where people are going to be. So like a film festival, this is going to be a plug, but going to a film festival is a great place because you're going to actually, it's twofold. Number one, there's going to be people who are going to be hanging out there who's going to be filmmakers or film related people. And number two, you get to see movies. So you actually get to see what an indie movie is. I mean, you might aspire to be a big budget filmmaker, but you might actually want to make smaller work. So actually, if you volunteer, so I got it. I found what I wanted to say, Jason. I would say volunteer. You're going to find out that there's going to be a number of like nonprofits or groups that have events or something, and offering to volunteer is something that people are going to want to do. So at a film festival, for example, they rely upon volunteers. So what you might end up doing is giving up a couple of your afternoons tearing tickets, at a box office. But what they'll end up doing is they'll let you get into films for free. So that's great. If you're able to like sacrifice a little bit of your time, you'll get into however many films you want to get into. And then you'll also be able to meet other volunteers who probably will be perhaps aspiring filmmakers. And that's a great networking. That's actually what I did when I came back to Michigan, because I was like, I knew a couple of people, but I didn't know anyone. And so I volunteered at the Redford Theater, which is a historic theater. I just because I don't have a wife and kids, I just started volunteering at places. And there were high schools that wanted someone with filmmaking experience to come in and like teach the kids like with lighting, to do lighting and stuff.
Really?
So I just started doing that, and I found ways to get into that. And from those connections. And then I found out that if you have like an event that has some educational aspect to it or professional development, you can actually get funding from that from the Michigan Film Office. So I just started. So volunteer to listening to this. Find a way. Now on movie sets, you might find yourself on a movie set that sucks. But that could be a really good way. And I'll tell you this, that's a great intro. I mean, a great in.
Okay. Sweet. That's like I said, want to help anybody else that's that's considering, that was the word I was looking for, considering pursuing something like that. That's I think a great thing. That was something that didn't cross my mind when I was really gung-ho interested, like trying to figure out how to get into this, which is a great thing I never would have thought of. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Ted. I appreciate you coming out. Go ahead, plug your stuff again. What's
I'm really bad at plugging. I don't even have a website, guys. So I have I would say, listen, if you're interested in getting a really good concentrated 8-week class on screenwriting, if you really want to get to like the end and make a contribution to your writing, I would say check out the Writers Workshop Detroit. You can just Google that. I'm teaching the screenwriting class there. And also, if you're in the Metro Detroit area or the Ann Arbor area in May, check out Cinetopia Film Festival. We have free events, we have outdoor screenings, but we also bring in a lot of cool films. And the short films, Detroit Voices, which is going to be Wednesday, May 15th. That's the program that I do. I do the full program of local short films, great short films, and it's going to be at the historic Senate Theater, so it's going to be like a big house.
Awesome. And now, if they want information on that one, is that also through Cinetopia?
Cinetopia.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks again, Ted. I really appreciate it. Again, this is The Get Up. Follow us on Instagram or Twitter at The Get Up Show. You can also check us out on Facebook at The Get Up Show Podcast. Also, check out the site, obviously, thegetupshow.com. And then also listen on Spotify, Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, pretty much everywhere. I think pretty soon I'm going to put up a YouTube channel too. But again, follow, like, comment. Thanks again, Ted. Really appreciate you coming out, sharing your stories. It was very funny. Lifetime. Love that one.
I have to come back. All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks again for listening to The Get Up. Like what you heard? Think it sucked? Or are you trying to do something other than just the normal 9 to 5 and you want to share your story? Then hit me up. Send an email to contact@thegetupshow.com. Follow the show on Instagram and on Twitter at The Get Up Show. And don't forget to visit www.thegetupshow.com and check out the links for our guests.